Please don't insult my guests. We don't do that to you. Treat them with respect and stick to the data. Benefits are being claimed now by over 1 million foreign nationals in Britain. Figures from the Departments for Work and Pensions show that households with at least one foreign national claimant received more than £7.5 billion in universal credit in just 1 year alone. Well, joining us to discuss this in the studio is the Research Director of the Centre for Migration Control, Rob Bates. Rob, astonishing numbers. And in fact, we spoke about this a couple of weeks ago. The countries involved, it's the same old culprits. Talk us through the numbers, talk us through the top nations.
Yeah, so I think the most important figure actually that's been revealed today was the one produced by the Centre for Policy Studies, which is that those foreign nationals claiming benefits or in households where a universal credit claim is being made are taking out £7.5 billion every single year. And this is a huge fiscal cost that those of us who have been sceptical and somewhat sceptical of the mass migration experiment for a long time have been warning about. I think it's also important to recognise that we have over 1 million individuals that are foreign born in the country claiming some type of benefit, whether that be universal credit, whether that be housing benefit or disability allowance, things like that. And it's not including child support and other such things, and pensions and such as that. We can see from these figures that have been revealed, the kind of propensity of a nationality and individuals from a certain nationality to claim some form of benefit. And I think it's really important that policymakers, as they're going forward, start taking these kind of things into consideration. We're about to see tomorrow Liz Kendall, announcing big cuts to the welfare bill. But I would argue that it's incredibly unjust that we have a situation where 1 million individuals born outside the country are able to sign on, claim benefits, a lot of them after just 5 years in this country.
A lot of people will be looking at these numbers and saying, how can it be, Rob Bates, that we give away £7.5 billion in universal credit in 1 year alone to the households with at least one foreign national claimant, top being the Congolese, then Iraqis, Afghans, all of those nations more than 4 times more likely to claim benefits than Brits. £7.5 billion, that's 5 times the amount of the winter fuel allowance not giving to pensioners. And it asks the big question, how can it be that Labour MPs will have a big problem with things like this, giving £7.5 billion to foreign nationals, but they don't seem to have a problem with taking £1.5 billion of British pensioners?
Our priorities are all wrong at the moment, and I think it's really important to recognise that this situation will be getting a lot worse in the coming years. The Boris wave that we saw under the last Conservative government, where millions were given visas, will lead to those individuals starting from next January being able to claim indefinitely to remain, which gives them settled status, which gives them right to claim benefits, which gives them rights to bring individuals over, which gives them a whole host of benefits that are effectively citizenship. It's effectively an ante-room to citizenship, which I don't really know if 5 years is the right time frame for these kind of benefits to be bestowed upon an individual. The idea that someone who's come in on a very low-skilled, low-wage job has contributed enough to the economy and to Britain over 5 years that suddenly we have to kind of be accommodating them and supporting them. It doesn't feel right, and I think it shows the very issue at the heart of the immigration system, which is that we are far too accommodating. We're not expecting enough contribution from those coming to the country.
Rob Bates, Chris Philp, the Shadow Home Secretary, reacted to your figures, and he said that the benefits bill for foreign nationals is unacceptable and astonishing. What would you say to that?
Well, I think he's right, but I would also argue that the Conservative government over the last 5 years have allowed those coming in on work visas, dependents and students to absolutely skyrocket as a number, and they've also presided over the proliferation of the indefinite leave to remain system. About 95% of applications for people applying for settled status are approved, which is criminally high percentage. And then, that equates, if you sort of work out the figures using those per nationality, that probably in the last 5 years we've allowed an additional 160,000 benefit claimants to come into the country in some form or another. So the Conservatives are doing a lot to kind of push back on their previous track record, but the fact of the matter is that it was something they were presiding over just a few months ago.
And Rob, it's quickly worth pointing out that this bill is certain to increase, because 800,000 foreign nationals are currently expected to receive indefinite leave to remain in the UK over the next decade, following those record levels of immigration under the previous Conservative regime, as you said. And once they're given the right indefinite leave to remain, that's the precise moment they can start claiming benefits.
Yeah, it's an absolute ridiculous part of our immigration system, frankly. It was something that was created in the 1970s when net migration was actually in the negative figures. I don't really understand the purpose of it in this day and age. We have, individuals on work visas, but we also have then them being given citizenship. We don't need this weird kind of anteroom that exists in the immigration system. It's an anachronistic, and it needs to be done away with if we want to really get to grips with the spiralling cost of mass migration, because we all know now it is an economic cost, despite what the open border fanatics and faux professors and whatever seem to claim. We know that 70% of individuals coming into the UK in 2023 were earning less than is needed for them to be making a positive economic contribution, even whilst they're working. And that's even before we start getting into the fact that these individuals then go on to claim benefits in many large numbers once they get indefinite leave to remain.
Okay, thank you very much, Rob Bates, Centre for Migration Control. And to continue this conversation, I'm now joined by the Professor of Economics and Public Policy at King's College London, Jonathan Porter. Jonathan, welcome to the show. So here we go again. We have a current conversation about cutting back on benefits going around in Parliament. I would put it to you that a great many people will be looking at this figure today and saying that £7.5 billion in 1 year alone spent on universal credit for those born overseas is a complete slap in the face of hard-working British taxpayers, particularly when you consider it's 5 times the amount of money that the Labour Party took away from British pensioners over the winter fuel allowance.
I think what your viewers ought to be about, Razor, is that you at GBNews continue to peddle fake news about this. So let me be quite clear. First of all, the headline you just had, foreign nationals benefit them. Remember, a very large proportion of these people are not foreign nationals. They're British, because they've been here long enough to acquire citizenship. So that's the first thing.
But they were born overseas. It says foreign nationals. So, they might become British citizens, but that's when they get the benefits. There's nothing fake news about that. That's a statement of truth. Stick to the facts.
Are you saying that somebody who come here, has worked, has been here 15, 20 years, somebody who come here as long ago as Windrush, or indeed my parents who came here 50 years ago and has acquired citizenship and are now British, are you saying they are foreign nationals? Because that's what
I'm saying they were born overseas, which is what this data shows.
You're quite right. They were born overseas. Are you saying they're foreign nationals even though they have a British passport? Let's be clear. Are you saying that somebody who was born overseas, has been here 15, 20 years, worked all their life and has British citizenship, are you saying they're a foreign national, or are you going to change
Rob Bates wants to get on this to answer your question. Rob, answer.
Jonathan, you've misunderstood the data, I'm afraid, as not for the first time, unfortunately. These are foreign nationals. The £7.5 billion bill is foreign nationals, those without British citizenship. So what you're talking about is completely, you're comparing pears and apples. You're talking absolute nonsense, unfortunately. No, it's foreign nationals. It's individuals in a household with a foreign national residing.
You're quite wrong, because I actually have the data release in front of me. It's from the Department of Work and Pensions, where I used to work and where I used to be responsible for this data.
No, it's foreign nationals. It's individuals that are foreign national. And
I know what the data... Let me be clear. Let me be absolutely clear here. I know where the data comes from. It comes from the HMR and DWP systems. I used to be responsible for this data. This data records nationality at the time of registration. And it very clearly says in the footnotes, which you, since you're a clown, obviously a faux think tank, didn't bother to read. It says very clearly...
Jonathan, there's no need to be insulting. Please don't insult my guests. We don't do that to you. Treat them with respect and stick to the data. Please answer the questions and don't be rude.
I'm sticking to the data, and the data says, I've got it here on my screen, it says this data cannot be used as a proxy for nationality.
You're confusing NINO registration at the point of someone registering for national insurance number, which is where you do end up arguably with a load of foreign-born individuals that become British citizens. But this Freedom of Information request done by the Centre for Policy Studies very clearly requests foreign nationals, individuals that haven't obtained British citizenship. So you can read whatever you like off the screen, but the fact of the matter is, Jonathan, it's wrong.
It comes from the same data, and you've got it wrong.
No, it doesn't. It's a completely new revelation. The data that we use, which is the foreign-born individuals, is those individuals that were foreign-born at the point of their registering for national insurance number.
It's very regrettable that Robert hasn't done his homework before coming to this program and doesn't know the data. But anyway, that's my point. And let me point out another thing where we clearly can see you, Martin, unfortunately, are still guilty of disseminating fake news. You still have up on your Twitter feed 1 in 12 in London is an illegal immigrant, quoting a Daily Telegraph story. Now, that story was retracted. It was corrected by the Daily Telegraph because they counted, again, hundreds of thousands of people who were legally in the country as illegal immigrants. The Telegraph published a retraction, the Times published a retraction.
Jonathan, are you going to answer the question about this story? Just like go through every single thing you decide is factually incorrect and come on national television? You've already called one of my guests a clown. Now you're going off about something on Twitter. Answer the question about today's data.
Well, I just think if we're going to have a serious conversation that...
You're not having a serious conversation. You come on national television and call one of my guests a clown. That is not the basis of a serious and respectable conversation.
If you have a serious conversation, then perhaps you should correct your errors when they are publicly retracted by the newspapers that printed them, but rather than continuing to have them on your Twitter feed. Of course,
Jonathan Porter, you haven't answered any of the questions put to you today. You've come on, you've insulted my guests, you've been trawling through Twitter looking for inaccuracies. Are you going to talk about the figures today or not? I want to ask you a simple question, Jonathan Porter, and answer it without being rude. Do you think it's acceptable that £7.5 billion of British taxpayers' money is being given to people in benefits who are born overseas when that's 5 times the amount taken off British pensioners? People have a problem with that. Do you agree?
I agree that, as we have seen from the data published by the Office of Budget Responsibility and others, that overall people who come here, people who come here to work typically, make a significantly greater contribution in tax than they take in benefits and public spending. That means that, other things being equal, if we had lower rates of immigration, we'd have to have higher taxes or worse public services, less money spent on public services. That is well known. It's not particularly controversial. On average, the people who are coming here are likely to be net contributors to the Treasury, not net recipients. Of course, some of them claim benefits, more of them pay taxes. The net benefit to us is quite significant.
Okay, well, there's a whole raft of information to show that that's not the case across Denmark, across Holland, across Germany.
Yes,
and in fact, Jonathan Portes, when you look at tax recipients by benefits, you are right to say that there are a small number of very high net worth immigrants, tend to be from America, Australasia, South Africa, and other Western European nations, as opposed to those at the other end of the spectrum, the likes of Afghanistan, Syria and Iraq. So you can't compare all immigrants together. It's simply not credible data. Look, Jonathan Portes, we have to leave it there. Thank you very, very much for joining us on today's show. Now, we tried to keep that civil. I don't know if we succeeded. Let me know what you think. If you're going to come on this show, play the ball. Don't play the player. OK? Let's move on.